Hey moms, welcome to the Mom Mindset Show where we talk all things mom life from A to Z. I'm your host, Rachel Benson. I'm a wife, a mom of 6, a grandma of 7, a real estate agent, and a life coach for moms. I've been through every age and stage of motherhood, and I've never met one I didn't like. I've also never met one that didn't come with its share of challenges and personal growth. As moms, we set the mood and tone of the home. We're the emotional support and the cheerleaders for everyone in the house, not to mention the cook, the chauffeur, and the housekeeper. There's a lot to know and do, and that's what I'm here to help with. I want to help you create the home and family life of your dreams, and I do that not only by helping you with the skill set, but more importantly, the mindset that can really help you succeed as a mom. Thanks for being here. Let's talk about what's on your mind today. Hey moms, welcome to the show. I'm so glad you're here. I'm actually so glad I'm here too, because for the last month or so, I ran into some issues with my production and wasn't able to get my podcast out. And I've got that taken care of for the time being. So I'm really committed to being here every week as much as possible. I love being here with you, and that is the goal. So hopefully you will see me here as often as possible while I get my feet under me. Learning to be an every week podcaster is not as easy as it seems. I really appreciate now all the podcasts that I love to listen to that come out weekly, or even some of them even more regularly. This is a little bit harder than it looks. But anyway, speaking of my most recent podcast, I did an interview with Tammy Hill, who is a marriage, family, and sex therapist. And a lot of my friends and listeners told me that it was really helpful to them. So I'm really glad to hear that. And I wanted to encourage you, if you have follow-up questions or further questions that maybe you'd like me to do another interview with Tammy or another expert on the same kind of subjects, I would love to do that. And I invite you anytime you have questions for me to come to my website, mom-mindset.com, and you can find a link that you can click to Ask Rachel, where you can ask questions anonymously, and I will answer them on the website. And feel free to ask away, and I would love to get more of a question bank going there with questions and answers for all the moms out there. And again, it's totally anonymous. If you just want to email me, that won't be anonymous, but you can always do that at rachel-mindset.com. And while I'm on the topic, I just wanted to encourage and invite and ask and beg you to review and rate the podcast. Give it a 5-star review to help other new listeners find it, and share what you like about it. And I love to read those on the air. So please do that if you get a chance. I don't know how to tell you how to do it on your listening platform, but you can easily Google it and find out. So without any further delay, I want to get into what I wanted to talk about today, which is the times and seasons of motherhood, and specifically the season of life and motherhood that you are in now, and how you can think about that and be really mindful about how you want to approach it. What got me started on this topic was a video I was watching on YouTube with Diana Koku, who's a YouTuber that I like, and I will definitely link to the video that I'm referencing. But in this video, she had 4 wine glasses in front of her, and they were all equally filled. And she named them friends, family, work, and health. And she mentioned that she had a friend who said she wanted to lose some weight. And so she said to the friend, "Oh, well, where are you going to get the time from?" Now, we might not think of something like losing weight as taking time, but in fact, it does take time. First of all, we have to plan and figure out what we're going to do, what we're going to eat. We have to find added time to work out, to prepare meals that are healthier and plan for those and shop for those. And if our family doesn't want to eat them, there's even more extra cooking involved, right? So she said to her, "Where are you going to find the time?" And went on to explain that if you're going to spend some extra time on your health, you're going to have to get that time from somewhere else. So she kind of illustrated pouring like your family glass into your health glass, a little bit out of the family glass, a little bit into the health glass. And she gave other examples. One of them was how she had recently quit working after having a baby, second baby, third baby, I'm not sure. But, instead of getting 8 hours a day back, she illustrated how she just took all the time from that work glass and poured it into her family glass. And as I'm watching her do this, I'm like, oh my goodness, why didn't I ever think of it this way? Ever since I was a young mom, I've wondered why I never seem to have any added time, no matter, what age, stage, phase, season of motherhood I was in. So maybe you're like me and you keep thinking that the next season will be a little more calm, a little more under control, a little simpler. One of my young mom friends was over yesterday and she was saying, I thought summer was going to be a little slower. And oh my goodness, it's been so busy. And one of the things that she's been spending extra time on is coming to help her sister-in-law who just had a baby, her first baby, and is finding it harder than she expected. It's like, what do you know, right? And without even realizing it, she's filled in some of that extra time that maybe she had in summer with helping her sister-in-law, which of course is a wonderful thing to do. But if you do it without realizing that you're maybe sacrificing somewhere else, then it can really make life feel super chaotic and out of control. Like, how do I never have more time? So whether it's an actual season that we're talking about, like summertime, or a season of life, like raising young kids that aren't in school, or teenagers, or being an empty nester, there are times and seasons of motherhood, and it can all mush together. It can all feel like our time is not our own for years and years and years if we don't pause and look at how we're choosing to spend our time in each phase of life. And I totally speak from experience in this because I especially remember the year that my oldest was a senior and my youngest went to kindergarten. So with 6 kids, that was how it worked out. The year that my youngest was in kindergarten, my oldest was a senior. And I was like, this is my year. All my kids are in school, at least for this year, I've got that extra time. Well, my youngest was in part-day kindergarten, which isn't even 3 hours, right? And my oldest was a senior and didn't have a full-time schedule. So he was in and out of the house all day. And, I'd drop her off and it was time for pickup before I knew it. And what I did fill in that little bit of time, a couple of days a week, I set aside that time while she was in kindergarten to work on some personal things that I really had wanted to do and had kind of put on the back burner for years. So I still wasn't able to get to it every Tuesday and Thursday as I had hoped, but I did start to spend more time on some other things. But I never really thought to calculate how that would affect my time and my schedule and my energy and the flow of my days. I wish so bad that I had thought back then of this concept of, well, I'm not really getting that time back because I'm just transferring it to other activities. If you've ever seen like time blocking on a schedule, it was like I just took out one block of time that maybe I used to be spending with my daughter every morning and filled it in with my personal projects or being with my son who was a senior and needed to catch up on some credits and things. So the time was there, but it was just used differently. It was just allocated differently. And so that went on and on because as soon as that senior graduated, I had another child who was a junior, and my kids never had full-time schedules their junior and senior year because they took college classes at least part of the time. And so, a college schedule is a lot different than a high school schedule. You don't go and stay there all day. You usually stay in the morning and then you're off. And depending on the kid and what they were doing as far as extracurriculars, there was just a lot of in and out that junior and senior year, which I enjoyed because I liked having that time with them when the younger kids were in school. But again, it wasn't like I ever got that block of time when everybody went to school from 8 to 3 or 9 to 2, whatever it was, and stayed there, So it always felt like slightly out of control. And maybe you are feeling that way too. So that's what I want to talk to you about, planning and being intentional about the upcoming season of your life. So let's talk about the upcoming immediate season of fall and back to school, and then maybe the school year. And then I want to talk about the broader season of life that you're in, whether that's young motherhood or empty nesting or somewhere in between. So fall can be such an incredibly productive time for moms when we do get some kind of time back. Usually the kids are involved in some kind of activities, no matter how old they are, or going to school, or maybe they're moving out and going back to college, something like that. And so our days look differently, and we can use that totally to our advantage, or we can create a situation where we feel frantic and hectic and like we're never in control of our time because we don't think to look ahead and ask ourselves, how do I want to use and plan my time in this season that's coming up? As moms giving so much to our children, sometimes it can feel like we will never get around to the things that we've wanted to do for ourselves personally. Like maybe it's going back to school, or being in an orchestra because we're musical, or starting a business, or just having more time to go out to lunch with friends. Or maybe you just want to catch up on the laundry for once in your life, right? So there is a way to do this. And part of it just comes down to asking ourselves, is this the season of my life for this? Is this fall the time for me to go back to school when my kids go back to school? Or is it a time to just relax and just get on top of the laundry? Just that could be something that could really move the needle for us in terms of feeling calm and on top of things. Or maybe we want to start getting to the gym more often, or go to lunch with our mom or our friends. Or maybe we want to start a part-time job. We can do anything that we want to do, especially when we really take the time to plan. But I think the essential thing is to ask yourself, is this the season for that? The Bible says to everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under the heaven. And the period of life, especially when we're raising little kids, that may be what we genuinely want to do and devote all of our time and effort to. I know it was for me. I did little jobs here and there, especially when I only had 1 or 2 kids. I would pick up some hours working retail at Christmas because that was my job before I started having kids, and I could fit in a few extra hours and make some Christmas money. Or during back to school, I could pick up a few hours here and there in the evenings when my husband was home. And that was actually pretty fun. It got me out. I have always loved sales. That's what I still do. And I enjoyed, spending a little time outside the house too and letting my husband handle things at home. But after I got a couple of kids, and it just didn't make sense for me anymore. And it just used up whatever remaining energy I had. So sometimes if we're feeling guilty or sad that we aren't getting to the things that we would like to do, could do, should do, we can just remind ourselves that this is a certain season of life. And if we know that we have prioritized what is important to us, we can remind ourselves whenever we're feeling behind, or maybe seeing that other people are doing different things with this season of their life and we're wishing we could do them as well. Maybe it's like traveling or something. We can say, hey, I already decided this is my season of life to be fully invested in being a full-time stay-at-home mom or a part-time student or a full-time student. It can really help quiet our minds and bring us peace when we know that we've decided on a certain focus for this period of our lives. I just want to give you an example of how my daughter Ellie has approached this. Her husband is a doctor. He's in his residency. And she has always said, if he's going to be Dr. Randall, I'm going to be Dr. Randall too. And she found time during COVID and during her second pregnancy to get her master's degree online. And she did that in between her first and second baby. And then after they moved, she was able to work part-time in teaching, which is ultimately what she wants to do. And she will get that PhD when the time and season is right. I know she will. She's very ambitious, and I think it's amazing. And then she will have another season of life when her kids are both in school full-time, that maybe that will be her time to pursue what she wants to do in terms of getting that PhD and maybe teaching at a university. So that brings me to my next thought for you, which is to not only think in terms of the coming season of fall, the coming school year that's ahead of us, and how you want to allocate your time and effort and energy. That is really important to do. And you will be so glad if you just think, okay, during this school year, I am going to focus on this, accomplish this, get on top of this, or whatever, whatever works for you. I could give a million examples, but you know what is in your heart and mind right now. But also, I want to talk to you about thinking in terms of 3 to 5 year chunks of time. I heard somewhere once that 3 to 5 years is kind of the time that it takes to do a lot of things. If you think of the first 5 years of life with a child and how crucial those years are before they start school or homeschooling, any kind of formal schooling, really. That's a good example of a 5 year chunk of time where, something is going to take a lot of your focus, like a child. That's about as long as it takes to get a college degree or an advanced degree, right? Somewhere in that 3 to 5 year range. And so that is your big focus for that period of time, or at least one of them. Maybe you can have, 2, maybe 3 during a 3 to 5 year period. It can take 3 to 5 years to get a business launched if you're an entrepreneur or self-employed, or even if you're starting out in your career, it can take that many years to really get your feet under you. I know when I hit about the 3-year mark in real estate that I really felt like I knew what I was doing. So what 3 to 5 year focus do you want to have right now? My husband and I were recently talking about this because we figure our current phase, season of life, whatever you want to call it, is until about the age of 60. He's 56, I'm 55. And oh my goodness, I can't even tell you, I can't believe we're really thinking about that now. All those years when you're younger, in your 20s and your 30s, and you're like, should we set up this 401k? And how should we invest our money? And you hear so many things about retirement and just like planning for retirement. And now those years are coming, and I honestly can't believe it. But it is. And so we started talking about this the other night, and I was like, what do you want to do during the next 3 to 5 years? Like, what should this phase look like for us? We have 6 kids, 4 are married, 2 are unmarried. So we're pretty, involved with our single kids. Of course, they're living their own lives and they don't live at home and they don't want mom and dad running their lives or getting in their business. But you know what I mean? We're still supporting them. But also, we want to talk about our relationship and our personal goals and what we want to do with our family. But it was funny. The first thing my husband said was, I want to golf more and also go to Hawaii. So golf and Hawaii are high on his list, but we also are thinking about our finances. What do we need to do so we actually are prepared for those retirement years? My husband knows he doesn't necessarily want to retire early, but maybe 65-ish. Then maybe he'll be a contract worker for them because he's got a lot of good years ahead of him and he's involved in some stuff at work that he really sees taking off in a great direction. And he wants to see that through. And personally, I want to keep selling real estate. I know that. I think I cannot foresee a time when I would not enjoy doing that and just find fulfillment in it. I've worked to establish that career. I feel like I do a good job. So I know for me, I'm going to continue doing that, but also with everything that I'm doing with Mom Mindset, with the podcast, I really want to get into more like public speaking. I have a book that's burning inside of me that I really want to buckle down and get written. And hopefully that will allow me to have more of a focus for speaking engagements and things like that. So I know that I really want to build upon that. I've always wanted to get into the world of personal development and self-help ever since I was young, just like I wanted to get into real estate and didn't do that until my late 40s as far as. So for yourself, for the next 3 to 5 years, where do you want your focus, time, energy, money, all of that to go? Do you want to be a full-time stay-at-home mom? Are you going to be working full-time? Are you going to be doing a little bit of both? Do you want to make sure you're there for all of your kids' extracurricular activities? I know from experience those can be extremely time-consuming and also it's just a joy to see your kids learn and grow and develop their talents and become who they're going to be. And if you have a goal that you just want to be there for every sport, performance, lesson, whatever it is, it will be so beneficial to plan ahead that is what you are going to try to do. So really give some thought to your mom life. Think about your relationships, your husband, your kids, your parents, your extended family, your friends. How will you prioritize those over the next coming few years? What about your health? I want to pause here and encourage you to really take care of your mental and physical health, no matter what phase of life you're in. Mental and physical health issues have a way of catching up with you over time. If you have injuries and things that you haven't healed or that you're trying to ignore, or mental health issues that you're not treating either with therapy or medication or other techniques that you find helpful, those things have a way of multiplying and sort of catching up with you at some point. I don't know if you can hear in the background, there are some fireworks going. Oh my goodness, that's so funny. Isn't that just like life? Yesterday was a holiday in Utah and fireworks are illegal on a few days on either side of the holiday. So someone's out there having a good time. But with your health, not only do I encourage you to take care of any mental or physical health issues that might be lingering from the past. Before I hit 40, I heard someone say that your 40s are the health insurance for the rest of your life. And I just took that to heart and tried really hard to live a healthy life, to get regular exercise, to eat well. I'm still not great at that, but I definitely do a little better than the standard American diet, I suppose, as they call it. But also always trying to keep a positive, healthy attitude is so important. And we have got to give attention to our health, even if that feels like we're taking some time away from the family. Sometimes we've got to make time to exercise, to breathe, to get outside. Those things pay dividends in the long run. A lot like saving money, we can save our health by being proactive about it. Which brings me to the topic of money. What do you need to do with your money? What should be top priority for the next 3 to 5 years? Is it building up a savings account so that you have a few months of pay in the bank so that you can weather through some financial storms? Are you saving up to buy a house? Do you want to buy a bigger house? Do you need to, like me and my husband, look ahead to, okay, are we going to be set whenever you want to retire at 65 or 70 or whatever it is? Are we really financially ready for that? If not, what can we do to get ahead with that? Are you trying to pay off debt? Would that be important to do now so that the next few years are easier financially? Personally, I think if you can pay off most of your debt in your 30s, so you're not having to have car loans and credit cards and school loans hanging over your head, it makes from the 40s on so much easier. So if you have debt that you're working on, don't stress about it, but I encourage you to make a plan and work on getting that paid off so that your next season can be financially more stable and less stressful. What about your home? Are there projects there that you have that you really want to do in the next few years, whether it's renovating, redecorating, landscaping? If you really think about it, those things take time, money, planning, effort. And so it's really good to know if you have some big things that you have on the horizon that you really want to do. What do you want to do for yourself? I keep coming back to the example of going back to school or getting a degree or, following or pursuing some passion of yours. Sometimes, when you're in the thick of things and motherhood is not the time to go all in on something like that, but we can do little bits and pieces. I know in the years leading up to getting my real estate license, I was reading and learning and staying abreast of the real estate market. And I watch hours of HGTV, so there's that. But honestly, that long lead time that I had to not getting my license until I was in my late 40s, I had so much time to learn and prepare and just follow my interests with that honestly, I was able to kind of hit the ground running with that. And I know some of my friends that are in their 40s are thinking like, they're kind of feeling a stirring to actually go back to school or start pursuing something that's been on the back burner. And I encourage it because there will come a time, no matter where you're at now, there will come a time when the kids leave the house, they fly the nest, and they don't want mom and dad in their business all the time. We become more of their cheerleaders instead of their coaches, is how I've heard people put it. And at that point, it can be so fulfilling to have our own thing that we are ready to launch. And there can be other things that we think about. What family experiences do we want to have in the next few years? What places do we want to travel? Are there career changes ahead? There's so many things, but I really encourage you to sit down, take out a piece of paper and start brainstorming, dreaming allowing yourself to really look at it. Sometimes we don't want to do things like this because we think, oh, what's the use in planning? My future never turns out like I planned, which could definitely be true, but still having some kind of a plan to refer to can be really helpful and really grounding. And I'm not even that big into goal setting or anything, but it's amazing what you can bring about. I call it manifesting in my life, just because you thought about it, you envisioned it, you dreamed about it. I'll tell you one of ours that was just kind of wild. One of the things I always wanted was a home with an in-ground pool and a large dining room. So we, were very settled in the home that we lived in prior to the one we live in now. Great neighbors. We liked our home. We worked hard to improve it and make it work for our family, but there were still some things that didn't work. But, it was fine. It was going along fine. But because I just had that in the back of my mind, wasn't even actively seeking it, when the opportunity came and almost fell in our laps to get a home with an in-ground pool and a large dining area, I was like, this is for us. Let's see if we can make this happen. And we just immediately sat down, and my husband's really good at doing numbers, and just we're like, can we make this happen? And it was financially a stretch, as oftentimes things like that are. And while I don't encourage going into a bunch of debt, I do believe that for some things we have to take risks and stick our neck out. I hear my in-laws talk about how when they bought their house, first they paid like $4,000 for the lot and actually paid that off. Of course, this is clear back in the early 70s probably. And then they paid all of $28,000 for their house, but that was a huge, big thing for them because their previous home had been something like $9,000. I might be saying the numbers wrong, but you get the picture. But for them at the time, that was a big stretch. I remember meeting this landlord one time in front of some apartment buildings that he owned. Just really nice apartment buildings that he'd built back in the 90s. And he said, I used to work for these builders as a contractor. I think he said he was a painting contractor. And when the opportunity came along to build his own apartment building, he did it. And I was like, oh, nice for you that you got to get in on that in the 90s. And he said, it was hard then and it's hard now. You have to stick your neck out to do things sometimes. So I hope you didn't just hear me say go into a bunch of debt or do something crazy. There's a lot to be said for not having a lot of debt and having stability in your life. But there are some things, if you really plan and think about what is right and correct for you, you can be ready to take those opportunities when they come. And I think it could just help you have a sense of if it's right. I know a lot of people have a heart for adoption or foster care, and that's a big, long process. So if it's something like that you want to do, just starting the learning process and the exploring process of how does this look, or even if it were having an exchange student or having more children, if you just know something is in your future or that you would like it to be in your future, being mindful about that and just being open to exploring, seeing what opportunities exist for you now, and being ready mentally, physically, financially when that time and opportunity really comes is really going to allow you to take the plunge that you want to take, even though it's scary, even though it's hard, even though it's a big change. So I hope that's helpful for you. I hope you can look ahead to the coming school year. And I have a suggestion as well about a really great thing to talk to your kids about. For this coming school year, I'm not saying like get them to set goals like read so many books or be an honor student or that kind of thing. You totally can. But more like asking them, what do you want this coming school year to be like with your friends, with your academics, with your extracurricular activities? What do you want to be able to look back and say you did or accomplished or experienced at the end of the year? I wish I would have thought to do this with most of my kids. The only one that I thought to do this with was our youngest daughter when she started high school. It was a struggle. She was going through a hard time. School's never been her favorite, even though she's really smart. And so we talked, and I said, when you picture graduation day, what do you want to say that your high school experience was like? And she said, well, I hope I've made a lot of good friends. I hope I've learned a lot of good things, and I hope I've had a lot of good experiences. She was really into the arts, so she was in choir and drama and did all the school musicals and had great experiences that way, made great friends, and it even helped launch her into what she's pursuing now in college, which is a degree in vocal performance. She also, at the beginning of high school, started voice lessons. And again, that was just a little seed of something that she wanted to pursue. She had the ability to sing, but we didn't know that that would become her number one thing that she loved and that she'd pursue later. So again, it was just a seed, just like a thought, just like, hey, I think I want to try this, as I'm sure your children have said about different things. And in her case, that grew into a big tree that's bearing some beautiful, wonderful fruit for her right now. I'm not one to ever say you shouldn't let your kids quit things. Like, just let them try and ask them what they're interested in. And if it's important to you that if they start a soccer season, they finish it, let them know that. So even when the times are hard, they know, hey, I'm just going to finish this season. And that can still be really tough. And I know people who set certain expectations when their kids set piano lessons, like you'll be able to play at a certain level or something before we're going to quit this. And, totally up to you as a parent to use your best judgment about that. But this will be so beneficial to you as well as your kids to take some time to look ahead. And I always encourage dreaming. Sometimes we're afraid to dream because we don't want the disappointment that comes with sometimes things not working out at all the way we planned or hoped. But I say dream, hope, believe. That's starting to sound like a Hallmark card or something. But really, if we don't even allow the dreaming, we make it that much harder for things to come about in our lives. That's what opens our eyes and our minds and our hearts to the possibilities for us. So I hope that was helpful. I hope that you are enjoying whatever beautiful stage of life you are in right now. Every stage has its ups and downs and good things and bad things and hard things and lots of reasons to smile. So I will check in with you next week. I hope you have a wonderful week. Hey Mama, thanks for listening to the show today. If you enjoy the ideas I share on my podcast, but you want some help applying them to your personal situation, I want to invite you to learn more about my coaching program, where I talk to moms on a personal basis through one-on-one coaching and group calls. We can talk about anything from the personal challenges that you're experiencing in marriage or motherhood to the goals and dreams that you have for yourself. To find out more and download a copy of my free book, Mom Mindset A to Z, visit mom-mindset.com. I'd love to see you there.